Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another episode of Open Money, where we feature real people talking about their real personal financial journeys. On this episode, we are speaking with Brian. Brian had a little bit of a later start towards saving for his retirement, but he had a lucky break when he made an investment in a little company called Tesla.
Hi, I'm Brian. I was 67 years old. I'll be 68 in a couple of months. I was born and raised in San Jose, California, still living there. I've spent time living in Dallas, Texas. I've spent time living in Massachusetts and South Dakota. Finally wound up back in California and loving it here. So that's kind of my history. What would you like to talk about?
Well, what stage are you at? Are you still in your working years? Are you?
So I worked until April 18th of this year,
Okay.
and essentially the company moved the department that I was working in to Florida.
Mhm.
I lost nothing in Florida, so they laid me off because I wasn't going to relocate,
Gotcha.
and which was unfortunate timing. I kind of expected to work till 70,
Mhm.
but it is what it is. And so now I haven't really quote unquote retired. I have two side gigs that I work on. One is doing design work for a solar installation company, which is my
Mhm.
background, my history. And then the other one is I work 2 days a week for a friend of mine in their office, answering phones and taking notes. I've never done that before. So it's far more challenging than one would think.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where I'm at now. What I'm trying to do is get by without drawing down any of my retirement until 70. I don't want to take Social Security until I'm 70.
Mhm.
The delta between taking it out now and taking it out at 70 is significant.
Mhm.
Um, and so we want to put it off as long as we can.
Do you want to speak to what your finances look like right now?
Sure. My I've got about 800,000 in retirement
Mhm.
funds. I, my house is worth about 1.4, depending on who you talk, million.
Mhm.
It's San Jose. It's the Bay Area. Everybody gets
Mhm.
excited. It's a pretty typical 1,600 square foot home, but
Mhm.
for here, that's 1.4 million.
Very
We
expensive part
owe,
of the country.
yeah. We owe about a little less than 400,000 on it, so we've got a fair amount of equity.
Mhm.
Um, we have no debt,
Mhm.
save for the house.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know what else to say on that one. I think I'm doing okay.
Mhm.
I wish I had more saved up, but we'll go into that in a little bit in the future here, I suspect. So that pretty much gives you what I have.
So what'd your savings look like through your full working years? I know right now it's like side gigs. What did it look like prior to?
So for the most part, it's all in retirement funds for
Mhm.
me. Um, 401k, SEP IRA from many years ago,
Mhm.
and 401k. My wife started a Roth IRA for me many years ago,
Mhm.
and she,
Good woman
eh,
right there.
oh, I can't. Yep, two thumbs up on that one. I would be in a real mess right now if it hadn't been for her.
Yeah.
I got to tell you that straight up. And so, I mean, I'm sitting okay. I mean, not bad at all. Now, my investments, she and I have a great deal. I manage my retirement. She manages the day-to-day affairs
Mhm.
and her retirement. They're totally separate.
Mhm.
Um, Primary investment, if you look at it, it's only 15% bonds and the rest is all in equities,
Mhm.
ETFs, mutual funds. I don't like bonds. I mean, I've been
Mhm.
looking at it and it's like 30 years ago, bonds made sense.
Yeah.
Today, bonds, in my opinion, don't make sense. So I don't have a lot in bonds. Most of it is in ETFs, S&P 500
Mhm.
um, based ETFs. There's a couple of different ones, whole market ETF,
Yep.
international ETF, and SEHD, which is a high dividend ETF.
Mhm.
And then this is the point where my wife and I diverge greatly. Back about 12, 13 years ago, I invested in this little startup company called Tesla.
Oh, really?
And put $1,000 in at $34 a share.
Wow.
It has split, as you probably know, but
Mm-hmm.
more importantly, because it was play money,
Mm-hmm.
I have sold it and bought it and sold it and bought it and sold it and bought it. When it goes high, I sell it. When it goes low, it's, oh, great, I'll buy it back again.
Yeah.
Um, and that accounts for 52% of my retirement now. So it went from
Oh, really?
$1,000 to 400,000.
So that's
And
kind of actually a lucky break there.
that's the key word, lucky.
Yeah.
For me, my wife called it gambling, not investing. But I drove the car. I researched Musk. I
Mm-hmm.
looked at the company, both what its goals were, how it was going to accomplish it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go into something blind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's why I've never invested in crypto. It makes no
Mm-hmm.
sense to me. I've looked at it. No, there's nothing real there.
Yeah.
And so from my perspective, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, people can invest in what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked at Tesla and thought it was a reasonably good investment very early. And I got in early and I was able to take advantage of it. So that's it. And at last November, I did sell 100, about 100 shares.
Mm-hmm.
It was at 1243. And I think, you know what, I'm going to take some of this right now.
Yeah.
And that went into SCHD and the other. Most of my investment is through Charles Schwab. So that's why a lot of them are Schwab related funds.
Yeah.
I have no preference. Some people like Vanguard, some people like Schwab, some people like whatever. To me, that's just an access point. It doesn't matter.
I'm with you. I like Vanguard just because that's who I started with, and I liked Jack Bogle's story when I read about him, so he got me started in indexing by hearing his story. But there's no advantage versus picking Vanguard over Fidelity over Schwab. As long as they're low cost index funds and an easy access brokerage, you're good.
Yeah, that's kind of my view. I'd never even heard of Jack Bogle, honestly, until my wife talked about it.
Yeah.
She is a major, big time Boglehead.
Yeah.
So, but because of my investment in an individual company, right there, I diverge from what Jack Bogle would have recommended.
Yeah, but I mean, to each their own. I still kind of say that one's a lucky play right there. I mean, phenomenal company and you chose the right horse, but to pick a needle in a haystack like that,
I don't think I'll ever do it again.
Hey, but you can hope. Maybe you will.
The thing of it is, you have to know and understand the product as well as the company.
Mm-hmm.
I now own a Model 3.
Yeah.
Okay. The product is outstanding.
Yeah.
The market was ripe for a upsetting company to come in.
Mm-hmm.
There was enough of a delta between the status quo and what he was bringing in that it made it an exciting thing to do. Kind of like, the iPhone. Everybody had mobile cell phones at the time, but they were all, button phones and flip phones and stuff. There was enough of an advantage to the iPhone that it just took over.
Yeah.
And I think in real terms, Tesla has the same potential. Will it be as big relative to the market share? Who knows? Yeah. But it is hugely different from a standard car. And that's what I banked on. I looked at it and went, it's going to win.
When I first test drove one, I mean, for me, it was only a matter of months ago and I fell in love with it immediately. But when I sat in the car, I was like, where's the buttons? Because it's so streamlined. It's just not what you're used to. Because my car is from 2008. So it's like I am driving a dinosaur compared to the Tesla.
Well, there's other things. My background is in the solar industry. It used to be in the embedded market, high-tech programming and so on and so forth.
So it seems like you kind of had an edge in electric vehicles even. maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I've been an engineer in stationary batteries and
Hmm.
power supplies and such, so I had an understanding. The thing with electric, anything with battery, is not the battery.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to make it into the battery. It's not. It's the BMS, the battery management system.
Okay.
That's what separates a good implementation from a great implementation,
Hmm.
or a bad to a good or great. Um, the BMS in the Tesla vehicles is the best that you can get. I
Yeah.
mean, they have accounted for just about everything, and that's what's going to make it work. It's
Mhm.
not the batteries. The batteries are good. Now the batteries are important because you got to get them priced down and still have capacity, and they're working on that. Again, totally different way than the industry goes. You know, they're a vertical integration company. They want to do everything.
Mhm.
And in the automobile industry, it's a horizontal
Yep.
implementation. You sub everything out, but you'll never get the prices down that way.
Yep.
So it should prove interesting. But you know, I knew and understand that market. I've been in the solar industry for a long time, dealt with storage. Um, so for me, I knew what to look for,
Mhm.
and that's a big difference,
Mhm.
a big assist
Yeah.
for me because I had that advantage. It's the exact opposite. A minute ago, I said I don't never invested in crypto because I don't understand it.
Mhm.
I understand electricity. I
Yeah.
understand storage. I understand how all that works, and that's a tremendous advantage. And so that's the way I went there.
So outside of Tesla, if
Mhm.
that's about 52% of the portfolio, when did you start investing in other funds? And like what year, what percentage did you try to put away throughout your working years?
So prior to okay, so I've got kind of this prior to my current wife 25 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I was in a black hole, and financially I didn't know anything, didn't do anything.
Mhm.
The company that I worked for had a SEP IRA. I'm sure
Mhm.
you're familiar with that.
Mhm.
I didn't know what to do with it.
Mhm.
So I created the account and just stuck it in the account. Was making what, 0.5% or a
Oh,
percent on
just
it.
in savings.
Yeah. I didn't know
Is
what to
that
do
the
with it.
default setting for a SEP?
Yes. Yeah.
I know
And
TSPs are the same way.
that's where I started with Schwab, because that's where I opened the account for them to put my big check in.
Yeah.
And SEP IRA at that company anyway, literally annually, they put a check in your account, and it was a
Okay.
chunk of money. And then because I didn't understand, I did have a 401k with AMD when I worked there back in the early 80s, right as they started it.
Mhm.
I think I put money in and then took it right back out. You know, I
Okay.
was stupid. I was really, really stupid with all of that. Um, once I second life married my current wife, finances took on a whole different meaning.
Mhm.
And I had about $12,000 in the SEP IRA thing.
Mhm.
But because I'd gone through a divorce and had all kinds of things, I think I was down to like $1,800.
Yeah.
And then Steph came along, and I started opening my eyes and seeing what was available. And I had, by that time, I had invested almost all of it in gold.
Mhm.
And because I wanted something solid, which is stupid because when you
I
invest
was
in
going to
gold,
say,
you do
what
have
made
something
you
solid.
choose gold?
Because I'm stupid. It's okay. Um, I use that term easily with me because when you look back, it's easy to say that was a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's not stupid. I mean, it's just I was working with the knowledge that I had.
Yeah, you know what you know at the time. And as you learn to make better decisions. Like you can't get mad at yourself. You can just say, this is where I am now. I have to do
Yes.
better going forward.
Yep. And so once Steph started, once I started acquiring knowledge from Steph
Mhm.
through, she never pushed, she never did anything. I just learned,
Yeah.
you know, being close, you pick things up.
Mhm.
Um, and so first things was I started taking 401k seriously.
Mhm.
And Steph insisted initially that we get at least as much as we needed to for the matching for the various
Mhm.
401ks that I had.
Love it.
And then that went from there to about 12% of my income.
Mhm.
The goal was to max out the 401k that was the goal. When I finished up last year, no longer qualified for the Roth IRA. We make too much money. But we maxed out my 401k at 25,500. And I think that was 18 or 19% of my income.
And how long were you maxing it out? How many years?
Just the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you started 25 years ago, roughly, investing?
No, not really. It took me a few years to get smart enough to know what's going on.
Before she shook you enough.
Yeah, I think that started about 2007.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's.
So for the past 15 years, you've really been.
Yeah, for the past 15. That, just before we got married is when I finally got smart enough to know what's going on. And so, in essence, it's like 2007, I was 21. Okay. And so now 2007, that's what, 15 years ago. So now I'm thinking of myself as instead of 21, I'm 36 as far as my investment age.
Hey, we're almost the same age.
Yeah. Only I've got $800,000. Okay. And then we've got 120 or so in cash or cash equivalents. We don't have anything in, well, I won't say that. We have some money in literally a savings account. Steph is really good at searching out whatever she can to get the best returns on it. We got a lot of money market funds, and that's our cash. We'd hope to build that up before I retired, but things got short circuited a little bit. But she's always maintained an 8-month emergency fund. She built that up as quickly as we could. There you go, and that's the way it is.
Now, are you planning to stay in your area, in the Bay Area, into retirement and everything?
That's a really good question.
It's a very pricey area.
Well, yes and no. You got to understand something. I don't buy gasoline. I don't pay for electricity. I'm in the PV industry. I don't pay for electricity. My house was bought many years ago. The cost doesn't go up. With Prop 13, even our taxes don't go up. So other than food and the very few miscellaneous things that we purchase, we are not killed with this inflation. It's kind of funny. My wife was asked, how much is the price of gas in California now? This was a couple months ago. And she said, I have no idea. It just doesn't play into it. And this is not a mistake. This is something that she and I talked about in 2011, 2012, and have been working towards this all that time. So there you go.
Now, you said there was some mortgage still outstanding. Will you go into retirement with a mortgage?
We never planned on paying the house off. Okay, we figured we'd just sell when it was time to go. It makes no sense to put money there. When I moved back to California, I was in debt $50,000. I tried to keep a company going on my credit cards. I don't recommend that, by the way. It's not that I'm a frivolous spender. That wasn't the thing. I owed the IRS $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 so many years ago, so I have a hard time remembering it. But so that was the first step, is getting rid of the debt.
How long did it take you to get rid of the debt?
4 years, I think.
Okay, it's pretty good.
Yeah, well, again, but I'm really good at, was really good at making money. So that helps.
It helps to have a bigger shovel.
It helps to have a big shovel. That's a really good way of putting it. So when I moved from embedded market into PV, I started working at a company here in technical sales, which means I did the design as well as the sales. And I tried to do it their way. It just didn't work. I'd been a consultant in the embedded market for years. And so I told the owner, Christmas time, I'm taking 2 weeks off and building my own methodology. And he said, put 2 conditions, because I'm 100% commission at this point. I cannot lie, and I cannot misrepresent what the company can do. And I said, no problem. I would never do either of those. And so I took the technique used as a consultant and applied it to how I did technical sales in the PV industry. And which means you do a design specification, a design report for what's going on. You get the customer involved. They have to provide what it is they want. I would use my expertise to train them and guide them, but they're doing the design work. They're speccing it. And then I would take that spec, design it, and come back to them and say, this is what you wanted. This is what I built. And it was like magic. I mean, everything went and clicked. The owner of the company once described me to a friend of his as the best salesperson I never trained. And
that's a pretty resounding compliment right there.
It had an impression on me. Tom and I had a really love-hate relationship to each other. We did have respect for each other. And that's the important thing. You don't have to like someone, but you do have to respect people that you work with.
Now, you said you were in a 100% commission-based role.
Yep.
Was that the role you just recently left?
No. So, wow. So that was 100% commission. I started that in 2005.
Okay. How did your income fluctuate in that kind of situation?
Actually, once I made the transition that I told you about, my annual salary went, the first year was 98,000. The second year was 130,000. The third year was 182,000, then 178,000. Then I only got a partial year because he sold the company.
Yeah.
After that, I started my own company with a partner, two partners actually. And my salary at that point was a salary and bare minimum, stable at 75K. And that's the way I just went on from there.
Now, were you ever
from that point on, I worked as an employee for other companies.
Okay. Were you a dual income household?
When I was working at the first job, the sales commission, Steph had just moved from Texas to California and spent 3 years. That was back in 2007, 2008. As you recall, you may not recall, I don't know how old you are. Times were tough there, and it took her 3 years, but more than 3 years to get a job here. But since then, yes.
So for 3 years, what's it like living in San Francisco on a 75K, but making it a dual income house makes it?
Living in the Bay Area on $75,000 means that you're living in a cardboard box underneath a bridge.
Oh my goodness.
I get a kick out of all these limitations that the government puts on income, like as an example, your Roth IRA, you can't make as a couple more than $200,000 and 220, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're thinking Kansas.
Yeah.
They're not thinking California. They're not thinking Massachusetts. They're not thinking New York City, because that is a third-year software programmer for Google. And that's what you need to exist. Okay, we're not talking a huge amount of money to play with. You're not romping all over the world. You're existing at that level. And I think, again, I credit my wife. We had that kind of income for two of us, and we own our own home. We have new cars. We do, but we plan everything. We don't waste money. We don't smoke. We don't drink. We don't party. Little bit less on all of that now. I mean, we do have membership to a wine club that we like going to, but that's pretty trivial.
Yeah.
But you have to plan. You have to be aware. This is what I learned from my wife. That life is a lot easier when you plan and put it together and know where you're headed. Doesn't mean that things don't come up that throw the plan out of whack, but your plan has to be flexible. And one of the things that attracted me to my wife from the very beginning is she's probably the smartest person I've ever known. And that in itself causes challenge because it forces me to rise to that level. And she's smarter than me.
Hey, Warren Buffett always said, marry up.
Yeah. My daughters had lunch with Warren Buffett.
Did they? Please talk about that, because I'm obsessed.
Yeah, she was surprised at his down to earth approach to life in general. and also appalled at his eating habits.
Well, burgers
She
and
does,
fries and steaks are not the best choice, but he's
yeah,
91 and I don't think he's going to change.
yeah. You know what? I wouldn't. Whatever he's doing is right for him.
Yeah.
But she is his. No, he is her uh, idol type
Yes.
person.
Well, tell her I'm in the same boat as her.
She's far further along on her retirement than I
Yeah.
am.
Now, did you influence that? Or did your wife influence that?
No, Steph didn't have not direct influence. I'd say my daughter has been that way since she learned that a bank would give her money if they stored her money there.
Yeah.
From that point on, when she got her allowance, the next trip I had was to the bank because that's where she was putting her money.
That's the best.
And so I can't say I've been much of an influence other than allowing her to do that, being the vehicle that allowed that to happen.
So on the flip side, did she influence you?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Case in point, when she and her husband got married and were living together and such, when they bought their first home, it was one half of a duplex. They lived on one income and saved the other.
Mm-hmm.
Much lower than what they could afford.
Mm-hmm.
They were together for 11 years before they got their first new vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And they paid cash for it.
Yeah.
And that's the way my daughter lives her life.
Mm-hmm.
It's really impressive. I'm so proud of my daughters. I've got two daughters, and they are just, I can't say enough positive about them.
Oh, that's great to hear. What are your plans for retirement, and how do your finances play a factor in that?
The original plans were to, at some point, sell the house here,
Mm-hmm.
move to Texas to be close to my wife's family.
Mm-hmm.
And that also gives me a chance to be close enough to Denver to be there on a day trip. And we come visit my youngest daughter on a kind of reverse it. Right now, I visit my youngest daughter a lot, not so often for my oldest daughter. We'll just reverse that. But a lot of things are coming into play with Texas, and both my wife's and my view on life. And that makes it difficult. I'm trying to be non-political here. I'm not sure how that will all play out, but more than likely we'll still move back to Texas. Mm-hmm. My view on retirement is, all I want to do is be able to putter around the house, visit my kids, grandkids, drive to various locations. If I never see the inside of an airport again, I'm perfectly fine with that. Having said that, we're still a companion pass for my wife. We can fly all the place we want, but it's just not fun to me. I've spent my whole working life traveling all over the place, from Europe to Taiwan to all over the country.
It's kind of over it now.
I'm pretty much over that.
Do you
lovely people. I can't tell you how many wonderful people I've met worldwide.
Yeah.
But it's just not, I'm done.
Do you feel financially that you're set for retirement and you're going to be comfortable?
Yeah. If we can hold off Social Security until 70, that will provide most of what I need to provide for us. Operative word there is need. Our needs will be taken care of. That doesn't necessarily provide all of our wants, which means I don't have to draw down much, if any at all, from my retirement account. That's the position I wanted to be in. We were just talking about the other day. I want to be able to leave something for my kids, family, as does she. He wants to keep it. So we're both going to have some that goes to family as well as each other. And so we have to put that together. But, I'm 67. The men in my family lived mid-70s typically. I've never smoked, never drank heavily. Last time I was inebriated, I was in high school. That was a long time ago. And so health-wise, I'm in pretty good shape. I spend 8-10 hours a week in the gym when I can walk. Up until just a few years ago, I was doing triathlons with my daughter.
Wow,
So
that's incredible.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that's my life. I just want to be able to relax and get up and do what I want to do. I don't have grandiose, oh, I want to go see the top of Kilimanjaro. No, I'm not interested. I'm sure it's beautiful. Take pictures. But that's it. That's just it.
And what's the piece of advice you would leave to people about finance? What do you think people should know?
The same thing that I've discussed with my youngest daughter is that I wasted 30 years of my life by not recognizing how important it was. And so the one thing that I've told people that have been in a position to discuss it at work and various other locations is, even if you start very, very small, get into that habit of regularly putting money away. I've had, and just keep doing it. Don't worry about macro concerns or anything like that. It doesn't matter if the stock market goes up, if the stock market goes down, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And some people listen. Most people kind of have their own way and think I'm just a crazy old man, which they're not far from. But it's that's the one thing. And then, gotta be careful here. Make sure you partner up with the right person.
Oh, I 100% agree with that.
Who you marry matters big time. And it's such a delicate subject to approach. But even as I was getting together with my husband and we were dating and getting engaged and everything, where we were at in life, financially speaking, was very different. I was much further ahead than he was. But I always told him, you have good financial habits. So I want to marry you because of your habits, because I would rather have someone with good financial habits because I know they have the capacity to build wealth, versus someone who has really bad financial habits and is going to drive me into the ground.
Yeah. With money on the day-to-day stuff is I'm lazy. I hate doing it.
Yeah.
So I would set it up to be automatic payments and not pay any attention to it.
Yep.
And over the course of several years, never a question of income. That was never the problem.
Yeah.
That drug my FICO score down to 6 something.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. My FICO score as of this week was 843.
Congratulations.
And again, the lady beside me is the champion of that one.
Yeah.
Every time I mention what it is, I get an email from Equifax. She says, "You're welcome."
Well, a lot can be said for marrying the right person.
Yeah. And I learned that the hard way. I went kicking and screaming into being a better person. But financially, always been a decent person, but financially. And now that I'm on the other side of that fence, it's not that hard. I made it this big boogeyman of I'll never get ahead. It doesn't matter. I might as well enjoy my life. If I want to do something, I'm just going to do it. And now I realize, looking at it from this side, that if you take the time and effort to get ahead of the game, you can still do the things you want to do.
Absolutely.
And be ahead of the game.
Yep.
That's the thing that doesn't quite click with a lot of people. If you get ahead of it first, then do everything. But if you always want to do everything that you want to do and you never get ahead, you're always behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that. I think that's great advice.
If you would like to share your financial journey, talk about net worth, income, how you view money, your perspective, I would love to feature you. All you have to do is send me an email at erintalksmoney@gmail.com and we will get it set up. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I hope you have a good one. Bye.